The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Tech podcast feed.
Woo! Savzoo is here for you. It is time to get a taste of my shorts. No. It is a Sovryn Shorts, which are little episodes that I do, that I try to keep it around the 15-minute mark, usually just covering one topic. And, speaking of topics, I get emails to questions at sovryntech.com. I get emails that go from, outright hate mail to, which it's amazing how common that is, to, why won't you talk about this, to Stallion, why do you keep making fun of Apple? Why do you make fun of Microsoft? Why do you make fun of Google? Look, just to make your life simple, okay? Just assume I hate everything when it comes to the tech giants and, a lot of just the modern directions that much of tech is taking. Now, the one caveat in there, or the outlier that you may think, would be Nintendo. Because, boy, does the man of tomorrow talk awfully nice about Nintendo all the time. He's really big about how they've put on more smiles on people's faces than any other company in the history of the entire fucking planet. Yes, you're not wrong. However, that doesn't mean that Nintendo is by any means perfect. I've brought this up a million times. The way that they treat IP is insane. Okay, the way they go after fans of their IP is insane. And if you're into ethics, blatantly unethical. But again, as I've said, when it gets to the end user, and this is where they differ dramatically from most tech companies, not just video game companies, but tech companies. Really, they've become an entire entertainment company, now coming out with movies and having, theme parks, whatever else, is that the end user experience that Nintendo gives you is second to none. And I mean that, second to none. On many metrics, not just user experience, not just UI, even though, sure, there's things I'd like added into UI sometimes that they do. But when you sit down, to rock Metroid Dread, man, does it rock, right? And you're just in and you're playing and you got it and you move on. Oh, but what about their horrible practices with Amiibo? Baby, go make your own Amiibo. In fact, if you're in the Sovryn Tech Telegram group, I told you how. So you don't have to play, you don't have to be in that market. You don't have to, play that game to play the game you want to play, like Metroid Dread. Anyway, as I was saying, Nintendo is not without its flaws. Now, it was back on September 23rd when Nintendo of 2021, when Nintendo had their latest Nintendo Direct, where they basically take over the world for about, however long they want it to go for, 45 minutes to 3 hours, I think has been the range. But it's where that's all that anybody's talking about is what the fuck is Nintendo doing? And I guarantee you, the halls of Xbox and the halls of PlayStation, those conversations are happening. Holy shit, what are they doing now? And how can we copy them? But not to sound like a fanboy, and believe me, I won't sound like one here. I also didn't sound like one after that Direct. I did say, look, it was a fantastic Direct. It was a brilliant Direct. It was so well done. It was incredibly exciting news to watch overall. But then we got to the conversation of what should have been, debatable whether it was, but what should have been the centerpiece of the entire Direct. That being the announcement of new systems coming to Nintendo Switch Online. I was cautiously intrigued, but had plenty of negative things to say. Negative things to say that now that when they made that announcement on the 23rd of September, they said, we'll have more details as we get closer to launch. We knew the launch was happening in October. We didn't know when. We do know now, and we do have those details. Okay, but we didn't have the details at the time. And it's probably a good thing, because if we had the details at the time, it could have spoiled the entire Direct, which was otherwise, like I said, a phenomenal Direct. Even though I can't believe Rockstar Games would not take advantage of that Direct or you know what, maybe Nintendo wouldn't have gone for it, but for them to not take advantage of the announcement of the Grand Theft Auto remaster trilogy, you know, with San Andreas, Vice City, you know, and GTA 3 and so on, what a fool's move. But whatever, it's going to do big anyway. I mean, it's Grand Theft Auto, you know, it's like Mario, where it's just one of the, you know, it's a Coca-Cola of gaming. But anyway, back to it. If we had the details at the time of, you know, like what we knew some of the games that were going to be available on launch. We knew some of the games that would come later on. We knew about the controllers, right? And we did very quickly find out about the pricing on those, which I thought was one of the negatives. Not for the N64, for the Genesis controller. Okay, we'll recap some of this. Okay, but we didn't have like the details. Okay, how much is this going to cost? Because it's an expansion pack to play N64 and Genesis games, or Mega Drive if you're over there. You know what I mean? You know, it's an expansion pack onto the Switch Online service that you're already paying for. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, now we do have the details. But remember, even then, at the end of September, I was negative on this. Why? And these are things that all still hold true. I was negative on it because, particularly with Nintendo 64 games, there are superior versions. Not just like little remasters or something like that. No, I mean, with whole other gameplay aspects, levels, mini games, you know, all kinds of shit. There are far superior versions of most of the games that they announced that are available on recent hardware. Not hardware that's hard to find on eBay. Recent hardware, like on the 3DS, you know, or even the DS, which of course could also play on 3DS and what have you. So I thought it was foolish for Nintendo to, you know, make this offering of games that people, you know, could have bought yesterday with no problem and not at a high cost, at retail price. It didn't make any sense to me. You know, excluding what I thought was a good move was including win-back covert operations. That was a nice inclusion. Didn't see that one coming. Dr. Mario 64 is a nice one too. And then the original Sin and Punishment, you know, which we haven't seen stateside since the Nintendo Wii on Virtual Console. And as for the Genesis selection, again, this is all stuff that's available in a million different Sega Genesis collections that have come out over the years, including for the Switch itself. To say nothing of that there are also superior versions of these games, say on the 3DS or other systems. So I thought that was a waste as well. What would have been brilliant is if Sega said, here, we had like these 4 unique games or games that were at the time kind of unique to the Genesis Mini, right? The retro console that came out. You can put those on the expansion pack. That would have made the Genesis package more intriguing. Like, throw Mega Man Wily Wars on there, and now we're talking. But no, it's games that have been had, you know, a million times over, and that are readily available on the Switch already. And also one where you don't need to pay for a subscription to get them. You could probably get them on a sale for $10, if not less. And, you know, you technically own them forever. They're even available on physical, if I'm not mistaken. So again, that's a mistake. Okay. But now, like I said, we have details of what all is involved here. What is the cost? Because maybe if this is only $5 extra, okay, then who cares? Right? If you're only paying $5 extra a year to get access to this, all right, that's nice. Then I can have these N64 games when I want them. Well, that is not the case. So the expansion pack for Switch Online that includes N64 and the Genesis games, as well as an expansion for Animal Crossing, you know, for New Horizons. We'll talk about that. It's launching on October 25th, 2021. So just a few days as of this getting released. And it will be, and this is important, it will be $30 more than the yearly Switch Online subscription fee that you pay now. Yearly. Now we got to be really clear about this yearly, because you might say, Well, hell, but with Switch Online, I can, just try it out for a month, or I can do a free trial, or I can do whatever, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to pay an extra $30 to play these games, which would equate to $50 a year for an individual. If it's a family plans used to be like 35. What do you get? 8 users. It used to be $35 per user. Now that gets bumped up to $80 if you're getting the expansion pack. You can still pay for the original and just keep the original. Okay, which, am I doing that? We'll talk about it. But Nintendo did something really sneaky here. With the expansion pack, you don't have a monthly option. You don't have the 3-month option. You pay for a year or you don't get it. And you pay for a year up front. So it's $50 a year or $80 a year, depending if you're doing, like I say, family or individual. For simplicity's sake, we'll talk about the individual plan. So you're $10 away from what PlayStation offers with PlayStation Network and what Xbox has, with Game Pass. And a lot of other commentators are already bringing up the point I'm about to say, which is when you're in striking range of those other services, you probably should offer closer to what those other, console services offer, like chat and, like a lot of networking and just the insane amount of games available, especially for, on the PlayStation Network. And then what Game Pass gives you, I think they give you free games every month with that. They just give them to you, and it's not like because you have Game Pass or whatever, on Xbox, like they would just give you games traditionally. What Nintendo is offering you here isn't anything remotely close to the to the buffet available on PlayStation and on Xbox when you go with their subscription services. And it's only $10 less. That's a problem. Okay. Now, the other thing that you're getting with this that I mentioned is the Animal Crossing expansion pack, which people are having issues with, expansion packs, having a game that is so wildly successful and then charging $25, which is what it would cost individually, charging $25 for an expansion pack. I don't really have an issue with that because I come from a time when expansion packs for games would be like whole other games and they would charge you, $30 or whatever, to be able to play it. I think of like Brood War for StarCraft or, something for Diablo or whatever. I don't have any issue with this. I do have an issue that it's considered a value add. But not everybody has New Horizons. And so like, you're kind of like shoehorning people in to pay a fee for something that may never mean anything to them. Maybe they're hoping that this would inspire people to buy more copies of, New Horizons. I don't know. But you should be able to get it without this. Okay, is my point. Now, I know that Nintendo Switch Online does give you games like, say, Tetris 99 or Pac-Man 99, which are phenomenal games at that. And there's a Kirby game, right? And those are great games, to be sure. I love them. But it's still nothing compared to, again, what you get for just $10 more on any of the other consoles. It's not even a matter of games. What about chat? What about a lot of these other things, these other features? So you're missing out on all of that. But I think the biggest issue here is, all right, we can say it's $50, Brian. That's the cost of like one AAA game, and you're getting potentially hundreds of games, potentially. Okay. Now, there may be a time in the future where, and it's got to be more than even the games that they've already told us that will still be coming for the expansion pack, which, let's let's take a moment to appreciate that Nintendo's calling this the expansion pack and it's N64 games. Those who know. But what's on offer right now just isn't compelling. It's really not. You could say that maybe it's compelling for people who've never played these games before. Sure, but I think those people, if you're that new to gaming, you are in for a hard time. And I mean that these games, like, traditionally have horrid bugs. They have big problems, big quality of life issues, as they call them, all of which have been over recent years, or ever, the years since the N64 came out, have been improved upon on other systems. Again, these superior versions of these games. And this is the thing that nobody else is bringing up, and I don't know why. talking about how there are other versions of these games that make, these almost inconsequential. But ultimately, and certainly for the Genesis, I don't even think the Genesis part of this shouldn't even be a part of the equation, because that's a failure all around. None of those games, this is true for all of them though, this is the point I was going to make, is that none of these games are hard to access. Like you could say, well, the beauty here is that, well, for $50 a year, I'm going to get convenient access to these games. I think all of these games without Switch Online are incredibly convenient to access. Emulators? Well, I want to do it the legal way. Okay. I mean, can you really say that with a straight face while you're either jaywalking, speeding, or rolling a doob or something? You know what I mean? You want to do it the legal way? All right. So, but back to the Genesis here quick. Back to Genesis. Where have I heard that before? Anyway, back to the Genesis for a second. Again, this is a fuck up, because as far as the convenience of games, again, it's available fucking everywhere, even on Switch. This is just mind numbing that this was considered a good idea. And I've heard so many commentators at this point, MVG, others, all of them are saying the same thing. How about you put Saturn games on that bitch? Yeah. How about it? Then would it be worth $50 a year? Yes. Why? Because those games are not convenient to get access to. I know, as somebody who has a modded Saturn, I know what I had to go through and what it cost to make that a convenient experience for me. And that ain't easy, and it ain't for everybody. Then you'd have a winner on your hands, right? The argument of convenience doesn't make any sense here, because I dare say it's easier to play these games in other ways than even on the Switch. The Switch is not as convenient as other options. But then to sell this Genesis controller for $50, what the hell are you thinking? And it's not even the 6-button version. It's the 3. In Japan, they got the 6 though, but here we got the 3. What are you thinking? There's nothing special about the Genesis controller. And I mean, you sold the Super Nintendo controller, which technically has more buttons on it, for $30? What the hell? Now the N64, it coming with Rumble, and being $50, like I think that's worthwhile. Okay. And I want one of those. I'll take 2 actually. All right. Like I'm totally on board with that. I think the controller, the N64 controller, great, because there's nothing else like the N64 controller, as to where with the Genesis, you can play Genesis games with any fucking controller and it'll work. I mean, this was just such a mistake. Nintendo, you totally screwed up on thinking you could get away with charging $50. And here's the thing. Why did they go with the 1 year? Like, you have to pay $50 up front. Or, I mean, yeah, they'll knock it off if you already have a Switch subscription. But why did they do that? I'll tell you why. Because they know that most people would only pay for a month to get access, perhaps, even if they did want to play some of these N64 games. Like, would I pay $7 for a month to, blast through Sin and Punishment? Yeah, I'd do that. I ain't going to pay you $50 a year. Not a chance. And it's not just, here's the other problem too. Because again, like we said, people will say to you, yeah, but you're getting AAA games for $50. I'm not owning them. Okay. Like I'm not even, like I can't even begin to claim them. There's a whole issue with e-stores and, e-shops, and that's a whole other conversation, but I don't get to own these even in that sense. The other problem is that, no, this is a system that you're buying to play with for many, 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 many years. Okay. The Switch has already been out since 2017. So what's that? 4 or 5 years ago now. Okay. That it's been available. Let's say this was available then. This is what you got for $50 a year, and then multiply that by 5. Say you're playing for like 7 years. What was that? $350 that you're paying for these games that, you could probably, most of them you could get your hands on in one form or fashion for significantly less. And that's without even going to ROMs. So you can't just think of it as $50 a year. You have to think about the long term. And suddenly these games become very expensive, and they're not worth it, especially since once you stop paying, you stop playing. That's bullshit every single time, and no matter what console we're talking about. So is Dr. Brian Sovryn going to be getting the expansion pack? No. Certainly not right now. In the future, if suddenly there's I said it in the last episode that I did after the Direct. I said it there that if the Genesis package was offering X-Men games and like Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, and some of the rarer stuff, okay, yeah, I'm there. Cool, I'll do that. Then those are games that I would play over and over and over again because they're just some of the greatest ever made. For the N64, if you got GoldenEye, okay, now we're interested. Will Perfect Dark come there? Maybe. There's a lot of talk about that. We'll see. And as far as why is this costing so much, a lot of people are suggesting that it may have to do with licensing issues, that they have to charge this much just to cover the licensing costs of having these games available. Maybe, but then if that's true, and especially if you want to use that as some kind of defense, if that's true, then that just speaks to that we're never going to get the games that we really want on these systems, because a lot of the great games for these systems, the licenses are either in some weird limbo or belong to other people that aren't even in the gaming business really and are going to charge a fucking arm and a leg for it. It's just not going to happen. Okay, if we have to pay $50, I can imagine to get the X-Men games, to get to get Death of Superman, even on Super Nintendo, that's not even getting into the expansion pack. To get, there's just a litany of games that we could, even on the N64, that we could talk about. Not even just GoldenEye. How about another double? World Is Not Enough. People forget about that game on the N64. It was fucking awesome. There's just no way it's going to happen. There's just no way. If this is because of licensing fees, then we're all screwed. And it's time to break out your emulators or whatever. Look, it's not like I'm against N64. I fucking love the N64. Okay. I've got an N64 downstairs. I've got an EverDrive 64 flash cart in it. I have every fucking game ever made along with mods and everything else. That baby is loaded for bear. Got the expansion pack in it. Got the whole business. I play it all the time. I love the N64. There's no hatred here. You just hear me singing praises about some Genesis games that we'll never be able to play probably outside of an emulator or having an original version of the cart. Yeah, no, I'll invest my money that way instead of paying for a shitty subscription service, okay, that offers me an even shittier selection of games. Now, do I stick with the base Nintendo Switch Online that's still only $20 a year? Yeah, okay, I have that. There's save game functionality. Again, there's Tetris 99, there's Pac-Man 99. There's offerings there that make sense at $20, not at $50. Okay. And again, the expansion pack, okay, if they wanted to charge $5-10 extra, that would have worked. But they went for $50. Again, it's no wonder they didn't give the details during the Direct, because they had to know that this was not going to sit well. And it's not. I've seen very few people say, oh yeah, no, this is fine. This is fine. Yeah, well, it's not. And again, could they make a service worthy of $50 a year? Absolutely. Nintendo could do that. And I don't think they have to go too overboard either. All right. I don't need access to hundreds or thousands of games necessarily, but you've got to give me more. You've got to give me access to games that it's not easier to get access to them other ways. Right? Isn't that what Gabe Newell said? Where piracy, as in perhaps emulators and just ripping games or whatever, piracy isn't a pricing issue. It's a service issue. Give me games that are hard for me to play, hard for me to access. And then I'll pay your tax. But I hate paying taxes. No, but then I'll pay your fee. Okay, but if you're just going to put the run-of-the-mill shit that's been re-released 10 billion times, okay, and perhaps even in better versions, there's some debate over what version we're getting. Is it we know that with the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection, the version of Mario 64, which is also available on Switch Online expansion pack, that it's the Shibaru version. Is that what it's called? And what's going to be the one that's on Switch Online? Might be again another inferior, even more inferior version. Oh, this is just such a mistake. The only good thing to come out of this I mean, yeah, the sin and punishment is nice. Maybe if the game selection gets bigger like that, that'll make that worthwhile. But the Nintendo 64 controller, that getting, re-released, updated, re-released, that's awesome. I wish I had the slot for the memory card, but probably not. But we can work around that with the receiver, make it wireless that could actually plug into an N64. Anyway, we're not going down that road. But that's the only good thing to come out of this, and the only thing that's worth $50 is that premium Nintendo-made N64 controller. That's the only part of this that makes any goddamn sense. Everything else is a fucking waste, or it's too much. Bottom line is it's too much. Like the Genesis controller, sure, that can exist, but it should only cost like $20. Again, all these games being available on Switch Online, great. Charge me $5 more or $10 more, and great. But no, instead you're doing $30, and even more so if you're doing the family pack. No, fuck it. So anyway, Nintendo, you screwed up. I love you, but you really screwed up so hard on this one, and I'm curious to see how this is going to change. And if you're one of those people that believes in voting with your dollar, do me a favor, vote with your dollar. And don't buy into this shit. Go buy a Genesis collection, and if you want, I'll do an episode about how to do a modded N64, because it's not hard, and then you can play N64 games to your heart's fucking content. So we'll wrap it up with that. I will see all of you on the other side.